Just sit it right there. Let me see if I can. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to get this thing something else. You know, I noticed the one thing about, like, when I look on, I got something I want to say to y'all. And I want y'all to listen to me good. I noticed that, you know, when you talk about, like, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of videos, tons of our people going back and forth at each other. And I'm going somewhere with this. They're going back at each other. It's not, we not, our people is not really going at the other nation like Esau, the so-called white man. They not really going at them. And I noticed that when you go at Esau, which is the biggest target, the number one chief cap enemy of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American people, which are the real Jews according to the Bible, they're going to give you trouble. Meaning that I noticed that I was screaming on your screen. And I noticed that they want to try to come up with something to try to, basically don't want your voice to be heard on your screen. You see what I'm saying? And because when you speak, I noticed that when you're speaking with a lot of you people, and I'm aware of that, when you speak negative and go against your own people, they're coming and shut you down. But if you get on here and you say something about Esau, the so-called white man, they gonna find some kind of way is to shut you down. But you got tons of you actually it's sickening. And this grace is to wake up and look on your YouTube channel and you see tons and tons and tons and video after video of our people going at each other. And the sad part about it, we don't have sense enough to see that as long as we're our people going back and forth at each other like that, I noticed that the YouTube channel or platform never comes down. As long as our people going at each other. You know what I'm saying? Debating with each other, hating each other and all of that. Out of all of the time that I've been on YouTube, I often tell my people all the time, and I made a vow to the Most High God, which I never really thought that I would have been on YouTube. My intentions, I always said, I'm gonna tell y'all the words I was speaking. I was speaking ignorant. Now, this was way before I learned about the Hebrew, God has a chosen people. I didn't have a breakdown of the Bible. I didn't have a general idea like I have a general idea now about the chosen people and who Esau is. Back then, I thought I knew the Bible, but I didn't. But since I came into a knowledge of this truth, and as long as you are exploiting your own people, like how people sell out, what you call sell out Uncle Toms, people like that, they don't mess with your platform. But when it evolves around keeping all of the 613 commandments, coming back to your nationality and telling the enemy or telling Esau that they the enemy, that they are the natural enemy, that they are the devil that the Bible speaks of, stuff like that. When you start talking like that, they look at your because these things are monitored. When they look at your YouTube channel, they see you automatically you're a threat. Like, these people here is trying to wake the people up and coming back to their nationality. So we got to do something. We got to keep our eye on this person. We got to shut him down because what he's saying doesn't look good. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? What he's saying don't look good. But I thought that the so-called black man can have freedom of speech, though. That's interesting. They say that you have freedom of speech. I don't think so. From what I see, that ain't my definition of free speech. You can't really say what you want to say because they're going to interfere with it. I tell my people, I love my people. We had our differences. I just ain't gotten older and I just ain't gotten wiser. I would say maybe at one time I was guilty of actually hating my brother, hating my sister because I was rejected by my sisters. But as I grew older and I came into a knowledge of this truth, I'm almost 48 years old. As I grew older and I came into a knowledge of this truth, then that's when I started to realize that I was ignorant and being an evil tool of the devil. You see what I'm saying? Being an evil tool of the devil. So that means I wasted all the time of my 30s looking at my brothers and my sisters with an evil eye because they the way they was handling me. They was looking at me with an evil eye when I was in Georgia because I was trying to date a woman at that time. And I was getting mad and I was getting pissed off because I was getting turned down. And I started like disrespecting the sisters because they was turning me down. But now as I gotten older and I realized that that wasn't nothing but the spirit of the enemy. I was in a docile state of mind. Ignorant. And that's when I really realized that I had been used as an evil tool. You realize that in certain parts of you, when your brain is not open, when the veil is over your eyes or over your brain, you can't really see. It's like you had a spiritual veil over, So that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna say it based upon the veil. It means you don't understand spiritual veil. So, and I started to realize, like, dang, when you is up, I guess when you get upset because a sister feels a certain way, or you being rejected for whatever reason, whatever they was thinking in their mind, I don't know. You know what I mean? It does cause you to react in an evil way. You see what I'm saying? So I realized I have to admit that I was reacting in an evil way. But when I came into a knowledge of this truth, and they broke down the prophecy of who Esau was, that's when I started to realize, whoa, I wanted to know more about it. It interests me. And then when they went to breaking down John 3:16, it bought, I like, I never thought of that. That's interesting. God didn't love everybody. Like, okay. And it was like, that's when I kept tuning into the videos because to me it was interesting, and I wanted to know more about it. And I got to the place to where I started telling people, hey, look, God doesn't love everybody. This was in 2018, around in May 2018, you know? And it's like when I was watching the videos and I saw how the people was disagreeing with them and stuff like that, that struck another vocal chord. I mean, that struck another light. I said, the first thing came to my mind, why would they disagree with him and they coming out the Bible? Because when I first saw him, I ain't gonna lie, when I first saw him too, I said, when the people would be disagreeing with him coming out the Bible, I noticed that I never saw that before. They all everything that they opened their mouth and said, if they asked any question, they always went to the Bible. They always went to the Bible. They even if they started arguing or debating with them on the streets, I saw something because normally they just go to arguing, but I noticed that every time they argue, they stayed in the Bible no matter what they said. They stayed in the Bible, stayed in the Bible, stayed in the Bible. And that was when I really realized that it was something different, more different about the message, the history of that Bible. That's when that's when it really came alive for me. And I said, man, I would love to be like that. I wanna tell people about this here, you know. So I started. I couldn't spell. If I was a good speller, I'd be sitting there writing them words down. You know what I'm saying? I said, this is real. This is powerful. And every time, every morning, I wake up, I'd be looking forward to a new video like they're doing right now. How they keep putting videos out, and I would just subscribe to different YouTube channels because at first I was like, man, I don't want to look at this. This ain't nothing but a religion. All this stuff is a religion. But something told me in 2018, don't just watch the video before you click off of it. Just take time and watch the video. So I took time out and I watched that video and I watched it. And that's when I went to listening to a couple of breakdowns, that's when I really realized, that's when it opened me up and realized that we've really been fooled. I've really been following a lie. And they talk about um, the different tribes, Creole, Germany, the German, the British, and they all conquered the natives, and every land that they conquered, they put their name on it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, it's like it was like lights when I first heard the Hebrew, because some of the main people that I started watching was One Body Yahushua at the same time and IUIC. So I started watching them, and I've read the Bible since I was like in my 20s, 22, 20. I started actually listening to the Bible because I couldn't read and I couldn't write. I didn't have no way of comprehending. So around 92 is when I joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I was a very devout person in the faith. I always wanted to know more about the Bible, and and they was right on the Sabbath, and when it came to the part in the Bible where it says don't eat pork, and a woman should not wear pants and stuff like that, things of that nature. You see what I'm saying? And so when I came into, then they went to breaking down that religion is white supremacy. That struck another vocal chord. And then they broke down Seventh-day Adventist was created, how it was created through man, it was man-made by William Miller. It was a movement that they started in the early 1840s. In 1863, it was formed in Battle Creek, Michigan, and all that kind of stuff. And it was created by a so-called white man by the name of William Miller. I'm like, okay. And it just brought more to mind. And then when they were saying you can't find Seventh-day Adventists in the Bible, you can't find Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian. Then they read in the Bible where it says, they read something simple. I'm going to show it to you. They proved that this Bible was not a religious book. Let's go to Joshua. Yeah, Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8. It says, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night. Okay, so that first part of that, I'm like, whoa. You see what I'm saying? And then they went to Job 30 and 30, and they showed how they broke down how all of the people in the Bible was black. And then they went to Jeremiah 14 and verse 2, where it says, Judah mourning in the gates thereof language. They are black, and the word mourning means they was um, we crying out no justice, no peace, and stuff like that. Living in certain conditions and neighborhood. They said the real Jews were the people who live in the slums. And when you go into the white neighborhood, I said, oh, that does make sense. Because if you go into the so-called Caucasian neighborhood, the neighborhoods are much different from the neighborhoods and people that look like me and darker than me or lighter than me or whatever you want to call it, brown or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So, and when I guess when I don't know, it's not about looks or nothing like that, but when you look at yourself and you really realize that they put the mixed people in the same category, and I said, you know that, and then it just went to waking up, and it just lights went to just clicking on when I went to hearing all these different things, and then they broke down who are hidden in the prison houses. They say over 27 the incarceration is African American people is in prison on a higher incarceration level. And then the first thing that hit my mind when they read it in Isaiah 61 and 1, where it said, He had the Spirit of the Lord God has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to build up the brokenhearted, to bring deliverance to the captives, to recover sight to the blind, but they are all hid in prison houses. And then it just went to ring bell. My two brothers been in prison all their life and stuff like that. So, and then we living in a neighborhood where it's nothing but all black people, so-called black, Hispanic. You know what I'm saying? When you look around, so when I'm looking at these evidence and stuff like that, and when you go in the store, you realize how you've been harassed. And I realized my baby brother got all the time in prison for some crimes he didn't commit. So you're thinking about that. Okay, I wasn't raised with a father, and I wasn't, I didn't have that in my life. So maybe that's why I could relate to it, and that's what made it make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? And I saw one incident, a couple of incidents. I said they was trying to explain the Bible on the streets, and they were letting them know that we were the chosen. I mean, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American people were the chosen people in the Bible. And then you had a lot of so-called white people, so-called black people. They was coming up there and they was being coons. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, that's when it really opened up for me. I said, and then they went to kind of like argue with him. And I'm like, why is the other brothers is quiet and that one man is left to debate this person? And they said it's just called order. They try to stay in the spirit. Everybody don't be talking over each other, because I noticed that I never saw. I said, I'm like, if I had been out there, I'd have like said something. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's just one person talking and the other one sitting there quiet, and they disagreeing with the person and everything. One person is disagreeing and they just double team this one man. You got all these Hebrew brothers sitting up there, and I'm like, but I didn't understand that they was keeping order, you know what I mean? And letting one person remain addressing instead of everybody talking and stuff like that. I said, well, maybe they're doing it because they don't want everybody to be jumping over them, and everybody start talking over one another and just get into a big rage. And so I realized when they read in the scripture where it says, let everything be done, let it be done decently and in order. They read that in First Corinthians chapter 14 and verse 40. I think that's what they read. I said, oh, okay. So I said, we really wasn't taught the Bible right, because a lot of times we read the Bible and we don't take time. That's probably why we didn't understand it in Christianity, things of that nature. We didn't understand it because they was teaching us wrong, you know what I mean? And when I heard it, it just like I just wanted to know more about it. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to know, they talked about it. It's important to know who you are and things of that nature. And when they told me that a certain nation like Esau, Jacob I love and Esau have I hate, I'm like, okay. And I said, maybe that's why our people get so much time in jail and the other nations don't. And you couldn't help but think about it because you have family members that's in these conditions. And then they went to Deuteronomy chapter 28, and then they went to verse 16, where it says, "Curses should not be in the city. Curse should not be." He said, "That's a curse to be locked up in prison. That's a curse to every time you get out of jail and then you turn around and go back in there for the same stuff you committed, like using drugs." And he said, "A lot of our people is in the prison houses because they putting drugs in our community." And I'm like, "Oh, that's my brother," you know. Like, "Oh, yeah, bro." I'm like, "Okay, it's a possibility that, okay." And so that's what woke me up. And that's how I actually came into being more passionate about it. You know what I mean? I'm like, it really makes sense. And I find myself saying, why is it that people refuse it and they reject it? You know what I'm saying? Well, why would they reject something that's true? Like, I didn't understand that neither. Why would they do that? You see what I'm saying? It was just crazy to me. I said, well, it makes sense to me, you know? So that's part of my story. I'm not gonna keep the video out or hold it out long, but we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit later. And I'll see y'all later. All right. Let me know what y'all think of the video. All right, I'm out. Okay, cut this off.